Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to If Data Could Talk, the Iron Viz season. I'm Andy Cotgreave, co-host of Iron Viz, joined by my other co-host of Iron Viz. Hello, Keshia, how are you?
I'm doing well. Andy, how you doing?
Very good, so nice to see you. And today we're joined by finalist Sam Parsons. Sam, welcome to If Data Could Talk. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Andy. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Keshia.
Yeah, nice to see you, and congratulations on being a finalist in Iron Viz. Just tell us, how was the experience, and also what's your day job?
Oh wow! So the experience was great. It was full on. I don't mind admitting that. The whole process from getting the data to the final viz and to actually doing it, that was pretty extreme. My day job is I work for Bistery, which is a Tableau partner consultancy. And I'm a senior consultant for them. And I'm also one of the Tableau Zone Masters.
You are indeed. Yeah, well, thanks for all the contributions to the Iron Viz feeders, the inspiration with all the work you've done over the years for Tableau Public, and yeah, congratulations on being a Zen Master. So today we're going to watch your build. Are you ready for me to press play and share?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, here we go. 20 minutes of fun. Let's dive straight in. If I can press the play button. Here we go. Right. So you're setting up, first off, Sam, with preferences, but how did you go from having a huge data set of music to a story you could tell?
Yeah, so I was quite lucky in the sense. So we had a massive data set that we had to join together, use Tableau Prep. Never used Tableau Prep before. And so that was a learning point within the time that we had. And then I joined the files that we were given and brought that straight into Tableau. Start pulling around the pills in Tableau as you do to explore. And I was very lucky. I sort of hit on to a point where I was looking at what were the top 100 artists, and then I started trying to clean up that view by using moving averages to take out the noise from the view. And that's what I actually do in the final, is that I create a chart with moving averages via Tableau Prep, and that cleans out the view. And from that, you can see these lines that are like flying up from the bottom, and I wanted to understand what they were. And I just selected one of those artists and did a bit of searching on who that person was and the tracks that we were seeing. And immediately I hit on the TikTok thing, and then I selected another one and TikTok came up again. And then I thought, okay, I've got something here. And I had that within the first day of actually pulling the data together. So I was quite lucky in that sense.
That's good. That's probably a good result. I'm too old for TikTok. How about you, Keshia? Are you a TikToker?
You know, I like TikTok, but you gotta time box TikTok. You can get on there too long.
Yeah, you tell my children that, please. So let's talk about this data connection. I noticed you joined two tables or two connections instead of creating one data source, and also, so I'm interested to know why. And I'm also I like this naming convention you've got. Is this some speed hack thing going on?
It's a bit of a speed hack, yeah. The data sources, so I had one data source for the Shazam data, which was huge, that data source. And then we had another data source, which was for the chart metric rankings. What I didn't want to do is I didn't want to join them. So I had all of that Shazam data on charts that didn't require it. So I joined them using that logical join, using relationships, so that I could bring the data in if I needed it, or make the connection with actions if I needed them. It turned out in the final build, the one that I actually ended up presenting, I didn't need to have it that way. But it just helped me separate and certainly speed up the viz. And those parameters, the only ones that I was actually putting the titles onto were ones that were actually being put onto the viz at the end. So the others I just quickly named with a single letter, so I didn't spend time typing things out that I didn't need to.
Yeah, very clever, very good, nice.
Yeah, I noticed just a while ago you had gone through and selected a bunch of different measures and then changed the formatting. Another speed hack, I'm assuming, but how do you remember which ones to select as you're doing that in the process?
Practice, practice, practice. It is a speed hack because when I was building them, the first initial few sort of practice builds, you're pulling those measures onto the onto rows and columns, and then you're having to go through 2 or 3 clicks to get them to what you want them to be. And if you select multiple to begin with and make the change before you drag it onto the sheet, then they're ready for what you want. So it saves an awful lot of time doing it that way.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And I noticed you've started using, well, actually, you've been using the temporary color palette boxes. It's a nice way of storing the local colors as well. But we'll talk about your actual color, your more fundamental color choices when they emerge on the screen, I think. So what's going on in this? So you're just building up tooltips and filters, is that right at this stage?
So this is actually a narrative sheet that I put. So all of my text about all the different artists that I'm talking about is built into the raw data. So this is at the moment I'm just putting in. I'm taking from my my notebook the text that I need to, the formulas that will make that run, and that's what you were seeing me do there, and formatting that. So this is an adaptive bit of text using a worksheet. So as you're selecting on different artists, it will adapt the text to help any reader understand who they're looking at and what's happening with that artist.
Nice. And how many times did you practice this?
Oh, geez, between 15 and 20 times. The first few times I was nowhere near the 20-minute limit. Yeah. So I was stripping out analysis that I'd put in there. And if I don't mind admitting, it feels kind of counterproductive in the sense of you create something that you put all that analysis in that you think is going to really help tell the story of the data. But because of the final, you have to take, you don't have time to build it in that way. You have to start taking bits out, and it's,
in the end, do you think that improved the final Viz?
It improved the speed. I think there are some bits that were sort of lost from the final build, in the sense of, we'll see it in a minute when I build a series of area charts. Those were the individual tracks that was the initial hit for those artists that were which was sparked by TikTok. What I had in there originally was all of the tracks from those artists, and you could really see the profile of those initial hits compared to the other tracks that they were releasing. And those initial hits were coming first. I had to strip all of that out because it was slowing the file down. But also in there, you could see that a lot of the new artists were following up their success by collaborating with an established star like Justin Bieber. And I wanted to talk about that, but again, I didn't have time to do that.
So somewhere there might be a director's cut of this, the full fat version.
Some people have asked me if I would release another Viz, like what it could have been. If it wasn't in the 20-minute final. So I have considered doing it. I haven't worked on it, but I might. Well,
you just take it easy. All right. So this is a dramatic looking chart. You've got 48,400 marks, right, on this chart, and that's surely too many marks to make insight. But as we can see, it's completely not true, right? It's how have you managed to turn so many marks into something that still provides insight? What's going on here?
So this is what I was talking about with the moving averages. And what I originally planned to do was I was going to talk about a few of these marks that are not highlighted here. So some of the more established stars at the top, where they maintain their position in the top 100 ranking. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to show the context of the whole picture of those 100 artists that I've highlighted, and then I was using the color and the size to pick out those story points that is in this final Viz. So I was really just trying to, it's hard to see it there where you've got the stark white background, but when it comes into the final Viz, those lines, those grey lines sort of merge back into the background a little bit, become more subtle, just showing you the shape of what else is happening and where these story points are flying in from the bottom.
All right. Cool. Can you explain what's the conditional filtering going on here? Because I think conditional filtering is possibly less and less known as a feature for filtering. And so what was your choice there?
Yeah, I don't know why I ended up putting it in there. I could have easily just put it as a standard calculation, but all I'm doing is I'm using a parameter to decide which story point that I want to show. So the selection on one of the charts will change the parameter, and then if that parameter equals the field, then we'll show that particular story point. Gotcha. So it's just another way of doing it, putting it in that way.
Cool.
I'm also curious to learn more about your color palette. When did you decide to kind of, if I remember correctly, you kind of went with the TikTok color theme, right? When did that decision happen?
Well, I wanted to be able to tie in the design with the overall reveal of the story. So the whole point was I was going to try and slowly take people through and reveal TikTok is the driving force, the answer. And I wanted the design to tie in with that. So I looked at the TikTok logo and I took inspiration, took the colors from the TikTok logo, the styling of the title on the Viz and the buttons are all done in exactly the same way, pulled it up into Illustrator and created it that way. What I probably, thinking back, what I probably should have done was make it a little bit more obvious in the title that it was TikTok changing the music industry rather than the influence of tech. I've seen a few comments in the forums about how my title wasn't particularly correct for what I was showing, so maybe I should change that.
Titles, they're so important.
Yeah, I think you've got a short space of time to make that impact, haven't you? And I think I was trying to create a bit of mystery around what I was doing. And I think maybe I needed to be a bit more obvious as to what the answer was.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, I wonder if those comments are coming from people who didn't watch the final, right? So if somebody's coming to the Viz having not seen your story, then I would be inclined to agree. But because you were presenting something and presenting a story, then that mystery had a bit more validity, right? You know, it's like you don't want to reveal the punchline. I think in for anybody thinking about entering Iron Viz and getting to a final, understanding that the fact that you have to tell a story, right? You're not building a Viz that's going to be consumed by somebody somewhere else. You've got to build a story, which as we will see with your containers, you did that well, but that's getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, so I'm spending an awful lot of time fixing axes and formatting, just so it gets to the view that I want it to.
Yeah, I think it's common amongst the finalists that you're reducing the amount of lines on screen, trying to basically remove as many lines as you can, to keep things just clean and crisp. Why did you choose an area chart for this one, Sam?
I think it represented the data well because I wanted to show how they were going viral, these tracks. And the height of the plot was the number of cities searching on that particular day. Yep. So the higher the plot, the more cities around the world are searching for that track. So I thought an area plot really sort of showed it off nicely. And then in the next chart, which we saw built just a minute ago, was I added a ranking to that, so a level of interest to make it a stacked bar rather than an area chart.
Okay.
Okay,
and here we go. We're going to build a dashboard now, right? I love this. Couldn't you have just done a black background? Why was it not quite black?
I don't know, because I've got OCD. I don't know. I'm very particular over how things look. So one thing that I don't know, there's a speed hack here in this that you probably don't notice is I don't actually build the full size of the dashboard to begin with. I keep the height of it as its default 800 so that I see the whole of the dashboard from the height in this view, because of the tool pane on the left, it pushes, and at the top, it pushes things out of the view. And when you're dragging things on, you want to be able to see, you don't want to scroll around while you're doing it. You want to be able to do it quickly. So that's why at the end, I'll alter the size of the dashboard to the right size.
That's a great trick.
Yeah,
I could use it in my own dashboard sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just for those that are perhaps new to Tableau, what is going on here, Sam? Because you seem to be putting a lot of special boxes on this dashboard.
So this is the big sort of wow sort of moment that I was trying to build into the Viz was this show and hide containers. I love show and hide containers. I love them even more now that they can be nested, and I love them even more when the next versions come along and they can become dynamic. But what I'm doing here is I'm dragging on, I'm setting up the structure of this Viz by dragging on containers into places. I'm bringing in blanks and bringing in the sheets and the parameters. I've got it all memorized where I need to place them.
Yeah. So right now, so this is an exceptional piece of layout container wizardry, and we're just going to take a pause right now because we want to go and see inside Sam's brain and get a bit of insight as to how Sam constructed these layout containers. So we'll switch over to that and we'll come back in a second. What is going on with this craziness on the screen?
Right. So this was the only way that I could actually get my head around how I was going to build this final Viz. I need to see things. So I built this in Illustrator to really sort of let me understand what I needed to do. So what we're seeing, all these colors represent different types of objects in Tableau, and effectively just concentrate on the purple objects, which are your show and hide buttons. And these little looping lines are showing me which container they are controlling. So for example, this button here, when you select it, will hide away this container and anything in it. What that will do is mean that this yellow worksheet, which was the narrative, would take the whole space just naturally. Then if these two containers were collapsed, then this vertical horizontal container here and this container with this single worksheet would then would share the space of the width. So this is how I sort of worked out how to nest my show and hide containers so that I got that effect of telling the story and revealing it step by step.
That is extraordinary. But even designing this in a wireframe ahead of time, and how did you know it would work?
Just practice and practice, essentially.
Yeah.
I also I did other things in preparation which helped me speed up the Viz, which which I'll just bring in here. It was more schematics of actually the padding on all of these containers and objects, the color that I was going to put on them, the size of the objects. This was a layout just so I could remember what I needed to do, and then also actually on the worksheets, how I built the worksheets, what measures went on what worksheet, what went on size, what went on text.
Wow.
And then any, sort of formula elements. It's just the way I work.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't know about you, Keshia, when I design a dashboard, I just throw it all on there and keep pushing things around until it kind of looks right.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
Guess what? I never made it to an Iron Viz final. Sam, this is absolutely amazing. Thanks for showing us a little bit behind the scenes. Really impressive stuff. So yeah, great stuff. Let's get back to the build.
Wow, that was amazing and mind-blowing. I don't even know how you keep those things together. Let's go back to the build and keep going.
All right, here we go. Did you have the schematic printed out beside you, Sam?
I printed it a number of times. I didn't have it with me when I was doing the final build. You don't have time to look at any notes and to look around you. You're just so concentrated. One thing that I didn't realize it was going to affect me as much as it did was the tension that you're under, moving the mouse. Your arm is so sort of tense, and I probably didn't come across at all in the actual final, but the number of times I'm clicking, I'm like triple clicking, quadruple clicking to hit one button. And it's just the tension. You're just like, yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Do you feel relief when that 20-minute timer is up? Are you like, oh, finally?
I do, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I have enough time to test everything at the end of the build. So I spend a little bit of time testing that all the actions work.
Yeah.
This annoyed me that you just saw there that the sheets come in with the white background. That's the one mistake that I did in the whole build, was that I didn't set that at the beginning. Because I would set the background to be transparent on the original sheet and then duplicate it through. And so when I started dragging them on, I was like, oh no, hopefully that's not going to take too long to fix.
Were there any other mistakes that we might not have seen?
No, there wasn't any other mistakes. So definitely not.
Just tell me, why did you choose a dark background? Because that's often an interesting choice that has to be made consciously.
So I think it's all to do with the color, trying to make the color pop. I think dark backgrounds show up well on screens, especially across the internet. I thought it would show up particularly well. I think in the actual final, I kept people guessing with what was going on with the color, because I had some dark lines and a white background until we brought it into here.
Yeah.
So I think the color choice works. It's all taken from the TikTok logo, and also the chart metric logo in the bottom right corner there shows up well on the dark background. So I don't have a preference either way, but
no, I know. I mean, from your I mean, I recommend everybody go and check out Sam's Tableau public profile. You have a variety of different styles, which is really powerful to see. So here we're seeing the final construction of these action buttons, which will dynamically show or hide the container to the right of each button. What was the inspiration for this way of telling a story? Because I don't think I'd ever seen it before.
I don't think I didn't see anything. It was just an idea that sort of popped up. I wasn't going to be able to build anything bespoke with like flashy charts. I didn't have the time to work that out. So I love show and hide containers. So I thought I could do something with that. Originally, I thought I could do something where I was opening something up in the left, then the right, then underneath. It was almost like a grid format going down.
Right.
But then I thought, well, why not just simplify the storyline going across the screen? I think Ravi Mistry mentioned that it would call it a concertina sort of effect, and he's right, it was. I think it worked well. Another speed tip for people in the sense of the images, I created those images so they fitted the space exactly. I didn't have to mess around with fit to size and center and change the padding. It was just another speed. I just dragged them in and they work.
Yeah. And
then all these highlight actions and all these actions are coming from the web object box rather than going up to the top.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. Yeah. Gosh. And now we're into the final step. So now you just kind of doing testing, right?
I'm just testing it. I've got about a minute left on the build, and just making sure that I haven't missed anything, because I didn't want to be left with egg on my face at the end.
This is the part where I was starting to be like, oh, that's where this is going with the show and hide. Very cool.
Yeah, because with that, 31 objects, you're like one dropped in the wrong place. It's like the whole thing could have fallen down. So I think, it's exceptional, absolutely exceptional. I love the color on that reference line, by the way. The date, the vertical reference line with the date.
Yeah, the red.
Yeah, really pops.
Yeah. So that's just me testing, making sure, and then I'm like, hands off, done.
Yeah.
Because that's
amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I think that was the end of the build. So Sam, I mean, so describe what's going through your mind at this point. You're done, you've tested it.
just relief to begin with that I managed to get everything into the build that I wanted to. I knew I would be able to, because of the practices. You sort of, in the practices, you sort of try and build in the buffer of a couple of minutes. So as long as it didn't make any mistakes, and that's where that tension comes in, that you might drag something into the wrong place. But otherwise, it's just pure relief. And then you're sort of concentrating on the presentation side of things later.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right, well, look, Sam, that was your 20 minutes. Your commentary, it's just so good hearing the commentary and the reasons behind these decisions. The color choices, the design choices, the technical challenges, the speed hacks. It's all fantastic. So thanks very much for sharing your Iron Viz. If you had one tip or piece of advice, if somebody wants to improve their Tableau skills or think about entering Iron Viz, what advice would you give people?
I don't know if I could narrow it down to one, but I'd say first and foremost, if you're looking to up your skill in Tableau, then pull down other people's vizes and pull them apart, because you're invariably, if you can't understand what they've done from just looking at it, you'll find invariably a hack of something that they've done underneath. So if you can pull them down and open them up, but also test your own technical ability by trying out different chart types. And I mean, don't just go to a template and put your data into a template to get the chart. Actually work for a blog. Test yourself to be able to create it step by step. And if you get to the end and it's not working, then you've got to really understand and force yourself to understand what isn't working about that chart. So that's how I did. That's how I took Tableau on very early on in my Tableau career. I was trying different chart types and trying to force myself to understand what was going on from the table calculations and the LODs underneath, and trying to fix them when they didn't work, which was invariable, they didn't. And you do learn a lot about the product in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They're great tips. Okay, Keshia, any more questions for Sam?
Yeah, I'm just curious to hear if you've got, along those same lines, something to say to the folks that might be considering Iron Viz for next year.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely enter. I've learned so much. I've attempted to enter 5 times. 2 of those times I failed to produce anything, but every single time that I've entered or tried to enter, I've learned something about myself, my process, about Tableau, about a certain chart, whatever. You can't lose by putting yourself through it. And don't put the pressure on yourself to try and think, well, I've got to make the top 10. I've got, what's the point if I don't make the final? It's your own learning. You'll get so much from it, from time management, from learning a new technique, practicing your design, practicing your storytelling. How can you create a flow through your analysis? All of it is from entering Iron Viz. You'll just gain so much from it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you know what? I think that is a perfect place to finish, because there's no improvement on that as the final word. So, Keshia, always great to co-host If Data Could Talk with you. Thanks for joining. And Sam, thank you so much for your insight. To those people watching, you can go and check out Sam and the other finalists' views on Tableau Public. You can download them and see how they were built, and I'm sure you'll learn a great deal. So, Keshia, Sam, and I, have a great day. Thanks for watching, and go check out the other videos with Pradeep and Lisa. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.